Good evening, I'm John Carter. Welcome to Poland Daily. The European Commission is satisfied with changes made to the Supreme Court bill by the Polish government, which now abide by the guidelines set by the European Court of Justice. That's according to Mini Andrzejeva, the spokeswoman for the Commission. Yesterday, President of Poland, Andrzej Duda, signed the amendment to the bill concerning the retirement age of judges in the Polish Supreme Court.
The Polish president signed the amendment on the last day before the due date. On the same day, the European Court of Justice upheld its decision to revoke the new regulations concerning the retirement age of judges of the Polish Supreme Court. It's very likely that had the decision been different, President Duda would have signed the bill. If the European Court of Justice didn't stress its doubts concerning the retirement age of judges and the rule of law in Poland, President Duda would have handed over the bill to the Constitutional Tribunal and continued making the life of judges difficult. Since the opposite happened, the President signed the bill. Maybe not entirely happy, but he signed it nonetheless. Members of the ruling Law and Justice Party denied these speculations and stated that they expected nothing more and nothing less of the European Court of Justice. I have no doubt what the intentions of the European Commission and the European Court of Justice are. Mr. President had the full right to wait on the matter. The amendment to the Supreme Court bill was approved by the Polish Parliament in a very short time. Given how quickly it happened, President Duda's decision to wait to sign until the very last moment fueled speculation. However, the spokesman for the president, Błażej Spychalski, put an end to that. Mr. President had 21 days to sign the bill, and he did that in that time.
Would you sign the amendment if the European Court of Justice hadn't sustained its opinion on the matter?
As I've said, Mr. President made his decision and signed the bill. The new regulations concerning lowering the retirement age of judges from 67 to 65 and forcing the judges at that age who hadn't written proper appeals into retirement are now gone. The first president of the Supreme Court, Małgorzata Gersdorf, and a few dozen other judges will now resume their duties.
A request for the arrest of Stefan Michnik, a Stalinist-era judge, has been forwarded to authorities in Sweden by the Polish Military District Court in Warsaw. Michnik is suspected of crimes against humanity in communist Poland. In his career, he sentenced many anti-communist freedom fighters to death.
Stefan Michnik is suspected of committing a total of 30 communist crimes. Some of them qualify as crimes against humanity. He is a brother of the editor-in-chief of Gazeta Wyborcza Weekly. He did not have an education in law, but was a judge in the 50s during the Stalinist era. He sentenced anti-communist freedom fighters based on fake evidence. Tadeusz Purzański, president of Public National Tribunal, which sentenced Michnik to infamy last year, stated that this communist criminal is a monster who should have been taken to court long time ago. He sentenced to death Polish patriots, Polish anti-communist freedom fighters, knowing that the evidence was faked. The only reason for such sentencing was the elimination of political opposition to the communist regime. He gave many of such judgments, frequently sentencing people of his own age. He was young at the time, of course. This, in any case, cannot be an excuse for avoiding prosecution now. Adam Michnik says that his brother was too young to understand what he was doing. Today, of course, he is too old to be prosecuted. He was dedicated as the communist judge. This opinion comes from the documentation. He was praising the authorities that they gave him the opportunity to do such important work for the communists. Well, those were dark years, and there were such dark characters. One of those monsters, a communist gangster, is the judge, Stefan Michnik. Stefan Michnik is 89 today. He lives now in Sweden. In Poland, he faces up to life imprisonment for his crimes. Many political observers say that the chances of him facing the Polish courts are rather slim. A similar attempt for his extradition took place in 2010, but the Swedish court dismissed the charges, stating that the crimes fall under statute of limitations.
Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán is under pressure following a wave of large-scale social protests throughout Hungary. A law introducing a change of the rules regarding overtime hours has mobilised Orban's political opponents.
The widespread protests took place partially against Viktor Orban's government, but more precisely against the so-called Slave Act, which was an amendment to the Labour Code, according to which the overtime limit is to be increased. The demonstrators protested in front of Parliament on Monday. They also gathered in front of the public radio and television headquarters in Budapest.
We will be not only on the streets, not only on the internet, but in workplaces, on the roads. We will be in every place that hits the regime.
According to the amendment, the overtime limit is to increase from 2,050 to 400. The overtime hours are to be settled within 3 years. Another reason for the protest is the reform of the administrative judiciary adopted last week.
Main problem in one word is the autocracy itself. That is the point when it's coming everything. So that's that problem what we have.
Protests took place in many cities of Hungary, but the most violent course took place in Budapest. Members of the opposition party entered the headquarters of public television and demanded their postulates to be read on the air. They were removed from there by force. Opposition parties, including the nationalist Jobbik, whose members later marched to the office of Hungarian President János Under to file a petition calling him to veto the bill, called for street protests.
We will stay here as long as we can. Low temperature makes it difficult, but we will stay here anyway.
Trade unions announced another demonstration for Friday if President Under signs the bill. Critics of the new law accused the government of concluding an agreement with German automotive giants having their factories in Hungary, who complain about the growing shortage of workforce. The government claims that the changes will benefit both those who want to work more hours and employers who complain about the lack of hands to work.
The new fifth branch of the Polish Army, WOT, or the Territorial Defence Forces, are attracting more and more young volunteers. The formation, modelled on the US National Guard, has become the natural home for thousands of students attending military schools across Poland. The increase in popularity of military schools and swelling ranks of the Territorial Defence Forces can be partly explained by the shock many young Poles experienced by Russia's invasion of the Ukraine in 2014.
The Territorial Defence Forces, or VOT, currently numbers 17,000 soldiers but plan to grow to 50,000 by 2021. The recruits spend 6 weeks in training, spread out over weekends, with at least 2 days of training per month. After being accepted, the soldiers receive weekend training for another 3 years, the first dedicated to individual training, the second year sees them choose a path of specialization, and the third year is dedicated to team building and group exercises. This year will be the first in which VOT organized drills for school students during their winter break in January and February. Many of the VOT recruits express pride in serving their country. 21-year-old beautician Angelika Pozorska says that she feels as if she has something to prove. On a daily basis, I like wearing nice clothes and high heels, and I want to show that a woman who likes wearing nice clothes can join the army, and I am an example of that. She argues that in order to join the army, it's necessary to be passionate about it. I love the army, and even if I have to take my makeup off or crawl in the mud, I will do it because I love it, and you need to feel it. When you join the army, you need to feel it. In the official mission statement of VOT, the formation is tasked with strengthening patriotic values. Patriotism is one of the main reasons why the veteran Grzegorz Wołoszczak joined the formation. He stressed the need of bolstering patriotism among the youth and the importance of passing on military traditions.
I treat VOT as an extension of the tradition of the Polish Home Army from the Second World War, and I think there is a great task facing VOT to build some character and patriotism among the youth. And not only the youth, because I know that there are also middle-aged people joining VOT.
He also believes that the military experience held by many older veterans can be highly beneficial to the younger volunteers.
I have quite a lot of military experience which I would like to pass on younger generations, young colleagues who I will be serving with.
The new formation of volunteers have been criticized by the liberal opposition parties in Poland, arguing that it's too tightly connected to the conservative government. The young recruits seldom want to discuss party politics and instead stress the need for themselves to get all the necessary training should Polish national security be threatened in the future.
Thank you very much for joining us here this evening at Poland Daily. I'm John Carter. Stay tuned after the break for Poland Daily Weather, and then join me after that for Poland Daily Business, Travel, Culture and History.
I'm Aleksandra Zarzycka and welcome to Poland Daily Weather. Let's see the forecast for tonight. A cold night ahead of us with a minimum -3 degrees in eastern Poland and a maximum 0 degrees along the Baltic coast. A quite overcast night with clear skies only in Gdańsk and Lublin. Now over to tomorrow. Some snow is expected in Białystok and Lublin as well as in Gdańsk and Bydgoszcz. The temperatures will range between 3 degrees in Koszalin to -4 in the east. Let's see the forecast for the following 3 days. On Thursday, the northwest and southeast will see some snow, while there will be some mixed rain and snow in the rest of the country. A maximum 4 degrees in the northwest and a minimum 1 degree in central Poland. More rain and snow across the country on Friday, with temperatures between 6 degrees in the southeast and 1 degree in the southwest. And on Saturday, another day with rain and snow all over Poland. However, there will also be some moments when the sun will peek through the clouds. The temperatures will hover between 1 and 4 degrees. Thank you for watching and goodbye.
Good evening, I'm John Carter and welcome to Poland Daily Business. The Polish expressway network will gain an additional 69 kilometres of new expressways before the end of 2018, increasing the number of kilometres opened this year to 350. However, it is 90 kilometres less than the General Directorate for National Roads and Motorways planned at the start of the year. The new stretches to be opened before the end of the year are on the S3 from Szczecin in the north to Legnica in the south, and on the S7 connecting Gdansk in the north with Kraków in the south. The Polish Ministry of Defence has placed an order with the Polish Armaments Group for 888 medium-sized trucks for the army. The group is a holding company established by the Polish government to unite Polish state-owned defence industry companies. The contract is worth almost 800 million zloty and the trucks will be delivered between 2019 and 2022. The Polish Army is already in possession of 1,300 medium-sized trucks previously provided by Jelcz. The trucks can carry loads of up to 6 tonnes and have a top speed of 85 kilometres per hour. The Polish National Development Council are planning to increase the number of freight ship owners flying the Polish flag. Many currently fly under the third world country flags as a way of paying lower taxes and avoiding national insurance costs. In fact, only 6 of the 96 currently operational Polish cargo ships fly the white and red flag. The proposed solution is to connect the social insurance of sailors to a minimum wage as opposed to a gross income. Some tax experts estimate Poland to be losing billions of zloty a year in revenue. So it's not simply a patriotic motivation, but also a financial one. Thank you very much for joining me here this evening at Poland Daily Business. I'm John Carter. Now it's over to Alexander Wierzchowski.
Welcome to Poland Daily Business Edition. Tonight our guest is Nicholas Richardson of Polish-British Chamber of Commerce. Sir, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Alex. Lovely to be here.
Well, since you are in the Polish-British businesses so long, are you afraid of Brexit?
Well, I'm not afraid of Brexit. I think the problem is nobody quite knows, even today, what Brexit means. And that is a frustration. Business, as you know, needs time to prepare. And it's hard to prepare for something if you don't know what is going to happen. The difficulty is that business is probably likely to prepare for the worst-case scenario, which means they're already making plans, even as Theresa May is delaying the key vote in the British Parliament on whether to approve her deal. The problem with her deal is it can't really be approved because it satisfies nobody.
And the stakes are quite high right now because the Polish-British businesses are growing on an exponential scale.
Well, the stakes are very high, and obviously we need to export goods and services to Poland, and we do buy a lot of goods and services from Poland. And anything which interferes with the free flow of goods and services, and dare I say it, and I probably won't be very popular in certain quarters of saying it, people, is something bad for business, and that's what we all want to avoid. And it's just incredible, I think, to you and to all of us, that the politicians are still wasting their time, not even deciding what we should do.
Let's start from painting the picture how the British businesses right now are looking like. What is the main export? What is main import from both sides?
Well, I think Poland exports to us quite a lot of sort of manufactured goods, particularly in the motor sector. We export quite a lot of food and drinks and other services to Poland. To be fair, that hasn't, the UK should be doing far better in terms of our exports to Poland. We're running a trade deficit with Poland, which is obviously very good for Poland and probably very good for most of your viewers here, but obviously less good from the UK point of view. And I think part of that is as a feeling of a lot of the British investors, the large investors, have sort of been taken over. So the insurance companies were taken over by Polish companies. So we have been less prominent in investing in this part of the world than maybe the French, the Germans, even the Americans, the Italians. So for our size of the economy, we're probably underrepresented in Poland.
So you are just rested on importing the workers from Poland?
Yes, we've imported workers, and we've imported manufactured goods. You look at big people like Tesco, which is obviously ultimately a British company. They saw Poland as a source of obviously workers, as a source of cheaper food products, because the cost of manufacturing all sorts of things in Poland is much cheaper than in the United Kingdom.
Of course.
And this, I think, also, if we think of the Polish economy more widely, this is a great challenge for the future. Can Poland move up the value chain?
You can also put it this way, that first Poles came to Britain to steal British jobs, and then British businesses started to source their products in Poland to further steal the jobs from the British manufacturers.
Yes, but I suspect very few educated people would believe that the Poles stole any jobs. I think the Poles were doing jobs which were there to be taken. It's very hard to arrive in a country, a foreign country, as an immigrant and steal something from somebody who's already there. I think the Poles who came like immigrants from all over the world, you could say even like the Ukrainians who come to Poland, they have the gumption to get off their backsides and move to a different country, and because they've moved to a different country, they want to make a success of it. And I think we have lots of Poles in the UK because they've worked very hard, and they've been, generally speaking, a good thing. Obviously, at the extremes, there are some who've not been a good thing, but you know, if you have 1 million people, you're bound to get a few who don't actually necessarily bring you something of benefit.
The deal we are talking about are about £50 billion a year, so that's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money, yes.
And this is what's at stake when the Brexit will just happen and cut those ties.
Yes, this is the problem. Politicians talk about, some politicians talk about, well, we could have a no-deal Brexit, we could trade on World Trade Organization terms. The point of that is that actually very few countries in the world trade exclusively on World Trade Organization terms because they set a minimum. They're not necessarily ideal. And for a country like the United Kingdom, which actually exports a lot of motor vehicles, for example, there would be a higher tariff on exports to the European Union, which is obviously people would say, well, hang on a minute, I'm not going to manufacture my cars in a country where I then face a huge import tax when I send them overseas. I'll build my next car factory not in Birmingham, but I'll build it in Poland. And this is what the politicians fail to understand. They think it's all about finished goods crossing borders, which is fine. And therefore the Germans will want to sell us their cars, the French will want to sell us their wine. But the reality is, in the making of the cars, those goods cross the border lots of times before they're finished. And that is the key with just-in-time manufacturing.
You are speaking about the goods that everyone can see on the naked eye, with the naked eye. Yeah. But there are goods that we cannot see because they are like financial services.
Exactly.
That basically London
London is the centre for European financial services. And if the deal with the European Union is not of the right type, then we will not enjoy the ability to be based in London and sell our financial services to Europe. And that would be a tragedy because about 80% of our economy in the United Kingdom is now based on services. And the idea that the politicians will think, oh, well, that, you know, it'll sort itself out is just folly.
Okay. Is there like in Poland, I can see that the sentiment that we can lose a lot on the trade and services with Britain after Brexit is very prominent. Is it the same situation in Britain?
I think those people who think about it and know what they're talking about, they fear that we will lose a lot from Brexit, both in terms of goods and services, in terms of communication, in terms of actually a labour force that we need in our country. And so, whereas I can understand the sentiment and the frustration which caused many people to vote for Brexit, it was in many cases, I think, more a protest vote against the government of the day rather than a sort of cool calculation of the pros and cons of being in the European Union. And it's a tragedy that that we're in this mess, and it seems to be a mess.
From your point of view, a British man living in Poland for some time, is it a reasonable solution to call another referendum?
To call a second referendum, I think that may be the only way out of it. I mean, I wouldn't have called the first referendum. But the second referendum, maybe. The problem with the second referendum is nobody knows how it would actually go in practice. People may say, well, we thought we had a referendum, we're now so fed up. You're the politicians, you sort it out.
The rationale is that you voted for us to take something direction. We took that direction. Now we are on the point for you to decide, is it this exactly
and
what you want,
a
or
lot of
something
people
else?
say, oh, well, you can't have a second referendum because you're defeating the will of the people. But the point is the people know a lot more now than they did 2 years ago. And in life, it's normal that as you acquire more information, if you're an intelligent human being, you may take a different decision. And I think many people, including me, and I probably know more about it than most people, I hadn't realised the depth and the complication of some of the ties with the European Union.
Right. It's like you jump head-on from the high tower and then you find out whether there is water in the pool.
Well, exactly, and it should be obvious now that for whatever reason we can't really get a suitable deal with the European Union. So we should take advantage, in my view, we should take advantage of the European Court of Justice ruling of last week, which allows us to withdraw unilaterally the Article 50 notice that we're leaving, and say, OK, we tried, it hasn't really worked, we're coming up with a better plan, but we'll stay in for the time being.
Okay, so we'll see how it develops. Mr. Nicholas Richardson, thank you very much for coming to the show, and that was it for our Poland Daily Business News.
I'm Aleksandra Zarzycka and welcome back to Poland Daily Weather. Let's see the forecast for tomorrow. Snow is expected in the areas of Białystok and Lublin, as well as around Gdańsk and Bydgoszcz. The temperatures will range between 3 degrees in Koszalin to -4 in the east. Let's take a look at tomorrow's forecast for the continent. The lowest temperatures will be found in the east, where Kiev will have -8 degrees and Minsk will see -6. A bit warmer in the Balkans, but with some rain. 6 degrees in Bucharest and 5 in Sofia. Clear skies over Rome, which will see 12 degrees. Double-digit temperatures on the Iberian Peninsula. 10 degrees in Madrid and 16 in Lisbon, which will be the warmest capital city in Europe. Thank you for watching and goodbye.
Welcome to Poland Daily Culture. Today we'll be specifically exploring the music of the great composer and pianist Frédéric Chopin. Chopin was educated in the tradition of Beethoven and Clementi, and he cited Bach and Mozart as the two key composers that shaped his musical perspective. However, once he had fully familiarised himself with the various established musical works of his day, he set about improvising them. And it was this flair for improvisation that became the cornerstone of Chopin's composition.
Here we are with Emilia Ziętek, who is a young and ambitious musicologist and also the winner of the Polish competition of the knowledge of Chopin. She has also worked on the past competition that took place in Warsaw, Poland, and was in 2015. Emilia, the first question that I would like to ask you is about the minute waltz that Chopin has composed. Is it really just a minute waltz, or is it just a nickname?
Waltz Des-Dur 64 #1, popularly known as the Minute Waltz, was not in fact named by Chopin. Words around claiming that it could be played in under 1 minute is also a common misconception, as the whole piece takes 2 minutes to play.
The mazurka is often cited as a unique Polish musical expression, especially the one that Frédéric composed. What is the significance of the mazurka as a musical style?
Mazurkas are some of the most iconic amongst European folk dances, for instance minute waltz or polonaise. The national dances started to reach its popularity in the 19th century because of the awakening of the national consciousness. It is at that time composers in Europe started to focus on folk music. Mazurek stopped being only a folk dance which people sang and danced in the countryside, but also became an artistic music style. Stylizations made by individual composers were very well received. Chopin was connected with two styles of mazurkas, authentic country and artistic. Despite the fact that Chopin didn't invent the style of piano of mazurkas, he was the one that popularized it to a worldwide level. The folk dance is not that special itself, but Chopin made it deep and gave it potential thanks to his talent. Also important to know is that Chopin never quoted authentic folk melodies directly, but took inspiration instead from its various features such as their tone and rhythm. Chopin's mazurkas are unique. People around the world are regularly left breathless by his pieces filled with melodic inventions and ideas. Chopin was inspired by three dances, the kujawiak, the mazurka, and the oberek. The three dances each have great varieties. The kujawiak has a slow tempo, while the mazurka and oberek are vivid and lively. Mazurkas have a special place in Chopin's work. He spent his entire life composing them. They are an autobiographical type of music. Mazurkas is a reflection of the changes in Chopin's style, starting with slow and simple to one of complication.
Welcome to Poland Daily Culture. I'm joined here today by Mr. Krzysztof Ratajski, pianist and composer. So I'd like to ask you a few questions about Frédéric Chopin and try and tap into your musical brain and find out a little bit more about the musical side of Chopin. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the most inspiring aspect of Chopin and his legacy, in your opinion.
Well, as we know, it's very broad, all this variety of new and interesting things that people find in Chopin's music, or if they are Poles or foreigners. So I will just speak from my point of view. I think that's the best way from my experience as a composer and also playing Chopin and musician. What I found inspiring, what also guided me to new things in composition and understanding in music, I think the beauty of Chopin's melodic lines. I mean, of course, there is this sophistication, harmony and styles, very known from romantic composers, the virtuosic piano, as we call it. But what is so beautiful in Chopin is his construction of melodies and perception, what he called also, of melodies as sound sentence, like sound phrases. So, in a way, he composes melodies as if he were speaking, singing, and that's the best way. Also, when I invent a new melody, I'm thinking how to say, how to sing it. Then it becomes like a phrase, an answer, a question. Da 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 da. You have a question here, and then da 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 da, like an answer. And so it became so intuitive to listen, to play. That when you just turn on the radio and hear, I don't know, a waltz of Chopin or a mazurka or anything, you cannot know the piece, but if you're a bit, not always trained, I think, musician, but just like listening just to this kind of music, you'll instantly recognize this is Chopin, and this is what is the most original thing, I think.
So does that mean you think that his interpretation of music was sort of like language in that sense?
Yeah, I think this is like making also, of course, he was inspired a lot by poetry, by folk themes that are very simple, but very intuitive, very vital. That's what gets me always, this vitalism in these melodies. But this is like making a new kind of poetry, just musical poetry. Like speaking in a new language, which is music.
Could you tell us, in your opinion, how did he contribute to Poland's musical culture? And, you know, what exactly is it that makes his pieces so exceptional?
First of all, Chopin was very innovative in terms of harmony, all this technical stuff. I will maybe for now talk less of it. This is like very structural things about the form, about the playing style. And at the beginning, although he was very early recognized as a very talented genius by his teachers, by people surrounding him and everyone, he was not very often performed at first in Poland because this was kind of new, kind of unexpected. People were more into in the early romantics, in the classic era in Poland. But then there were some historical facts that, of course, make this so important. That, for example, that was, of course, the uprising, the November uprising in Poland, where like Chopin's music was used to boost the nation's morale. You can feel in this music this very strong spirit.
Hi, I'm Phil Goss with Poland Daily. We're here at the Royal Castle in Warsaw today to talk to the historian and the curator, both responsible for the exhibit Znaki Wolności, or Signs of Freedom. We're here with Dr. Krzysztof Jabłonka talking about Piłsudski's legions and their involvement in World War I.
Legiony Piłsudskiego były odpowiedzią.
Piłsudski's legions were a response to the fall of a national uprising that took place 50 years earlier. We were humiliated and beaten by the Tsarist Empire. The descendants of those who had been defeated created legions on the Austrian side.
Obecnie potomkowie tych, którzy przegrali powstanie, zawiązali oddziały po stronie austriackiej. Dlaczego akurat z 3 zaborców wybraliśmy Austriaków?
Why, out of the 3 invaders, did we choose the Austrians? Because we were able to work things out with them. We had a similar Slavic language to the Russians. With the Germans we had Western culture in common, but with the Austrians we had Catholicism in common, shared values in terms of human life and shared national values.
Wartości życia ludzkiego i wartości narodowych. Austriacy po reformie.
After the reform in 1867, the Austrians gave Hungary and Poland a lot of national freedom. There were just 2 elements missing: a Ministry of Foreign Affairs that was taken up by Roman Dmowski in Paris, and armed forces which Józef Piłsudski took charge of in Krakow. And there, among his volunteers, the military formation known as the First Cavalry Company was formed.
W Krakowie. I tam właśnie spośród jego tak zwanych strzelców, czyli wolontariuszy, zorganizowano pierwszy zastęp zwany pierwszą kompanią kadrową. Było to 180.
It comprised of 184 young people who entered the Russian partition and demolished border posts. It had a great symbolic meaning, the breaking down of divisions on Polish territory.
Przełamania podziału terytorium polskiego. Myśmy nie tylko byli podbici.
We weren't just beaten in the 18th century, we were torn into 3.
Żeby pokonać jedną Rzeczpospolitą, trzeba było 3 potęgi europejskie.
To defeat one republic, you needed 3 European powers. They kept watch of the Polish capitals, each watched a different one. Germany had Poznań and Gniezno, Krakow, where the headquarters of the kings were, was Austria's, and Warsaw, where the Polish parliament was, and where we are today, was taken by the Russians after the Congress of Vienna.
I teraz trzeba było tę historię odwrócić.
This needed to be reversed. That's why from Krakow, from the Oleandry, the first group of young soldiers from the Republic set out, and soon there was a movement, an uprising in fact, because in a short time when the area was liberated from the Russians, the structures of a Polish state were being established. Polish flags were put out, there were Polish coats of arms and recruitment to Polish formations.
Struktury państwa polskiego, wywieszano polskie flagi, pojawiały się polskie herby i werbunek do polskich oddziałów. Z nich zrodziły się 2 legiony.
From this, 2 brigades of Polish legions were formed. The first brigade, led by Józef Piłsudski up until the end of its existence, when we swore allegiance to the Germans in the Oath Crisis, and the second brigade, commanded by Józef Haller, a young scout from Lwów, who led it to the Carpathian Mountains, where on the border of Romania, Moldavia, Russia and Hungary, the brigade had its epos.
I tam w Karpatach, na pograniczu rumuńsko-mołdawsko-rosyjskim, ba nawet węgierskim, owa brygada miała swoją epopeję. Obie brygady.
After 2 years of fighting with the Russians, both brigades were joined in a key place for the Eastern Front, in Kostochniówka, a little village in Wolyń, Ukraine, where the German and Austrian fronts connected.
Gdzie łączył się front niemiecki z frontem austriackim. Austriacy i Niemcy jako sojusznicy.
The Austrians and Germans, as allies, held the Eastern Front together against Russia. It's in this place that in 1916 General Brusilov's army attacked. It was a powerful project, with one of its objectives being to save Verdun in France. If the 3 Polish brigades had not have been there, because a 3rd brigade also joined from Warsaw, the front would have cracked in this place, and both central nations would have lost.
Trzecia grupa z Warszawy. Prawdopodobnie w tym miejscu pękłby front i oba państwa centralne by przegrały. Polacy byli zainteresowani.
The Poles were most interested in expelling Saddam. We weren't fighting with the Russians, but the Tsarist system that enslaved us and the Russians. And during the attacks on that part of the front, the Poles also saved their own land. It was a convergence with Germany and Austria. But when they tried to use us against the Entente, the Poles threw down their weapons and went into internment camps. That's how the legions ended in 1917, with their leader ending up in a German prison.
w 1917 roku, a ich dowódca trafił do niemieckiego więzienia.
Thank you for that. We'll be back with Poland Daily. The Royal Castle in Warsaw is currently hosting the exhibition Signs of Freedom, depicting the aspirations of generations of Poles to win back and to retain their freedom in the period between 1914 and 1989. Up next, we will talk to the exhibition's curator, Professor Łukasz Kosowski, about the art on display and particularly about the pieces depicting the era of Marshal Pilsudski's legions from the First World War. Dr. Kosowski, tell me, what was the overall idea behind this exhibit?
Pomysłem na tę wystawę było pokazanie.
The idea was to show the process of Poland regaining independence. It covers the period from 1914 to 1989. We didn't just want a historic exhibit, it was about putting together an essay on Polish history covering those years. That's why the chronology of the exhibit is often disturbed or complicated.
Zakłócone czy powikłane. Poszukiwaliśmy w tym ciągu historii.
We searched out particular points in history that best define Polish attitudes,
które najlepiej definiują postawy Polaków. I dlatego za narratora pokazu przyjęliśmy.
This is why, to narrate the exhibit, we appointed the great 18th century Polish painter Jan Matejko. He is the greatest historical painter and he is to tell the history of Poland up until 1989.
Historię Polski aż do czasów współczesnych, do roku 89. Ale z tym zastrzeżeniem, że nie
we didn't treat him as a historical painter, but as a prophet who could look deep into the past and foresee the future, and that's why he tells the history of Poland.
Który miał zdolność wglądania w głąb dziejów, przewidywania nadchodzących faktów i dlatego też on opowiada całą historię Polski.
So let's take, for example, the Legionów in this section of Polish history. How do you present that in this exhibition?
To rozdział wystawy, który nosi tytuł Epopeja Legionowa.
This is a section of the exhibit entitled The Legionary Epos. It talks about the creation of the legions and talks about their journey in the years 1914 to 1916, so from the uprising. This is where we enter the time of the Polish cadres and Zakopane, where Józef Piłsudski creates the first formations as a base for future legions.
Jako bazę przyszłych legionów. I towarzyszymy mu.
We accompany his legions in the march from Krakow through Kielce to Warsaw, which they enter in
1916. Opowiadamy to w różny sposób, za pomocą.
We tell the story in many ways with the help of pictures which showcase specific events such as battles, skirmishes, camps and so on, with the help of documentary films because they now exist, and with the help of short eyewitness accounts from people who tell us in a very personal way and sometimes dramatic way how this history occurred.
Krótkich relacji świadków historii, którzy byli porwani przez jej bieg i którzy mówią nam w sposób niezwykle osobisty o tych momentach, jak ta historia się dzieje. Czasem w sposób bardzo dramatyczny.
What do you think is the most interesting aspect of this exhibit? What makes it different from what people might expect to see at a museum?
Zasada, jak już powiedziałem, jest dość prosta i być może oryginalna, czyli.
The formula is fairly simple and perhaps rather original. As well as giving historical facts, we are interested in Polish attitudes during particular moments of history.
Interesują nas postawy Polaków w konkretnych momentach historii. Każdemu znany w Polsce jest.
For example, everyone knows Jan Matejko's amazing painting Reitan, The Fall of Poland, depicting the moment of the first partition of Poland and the politician Reitan's protest against it.
Temu faktowi przez posła Siedmiogrodu Reitana. Reitan dosłownie rzuca się w drzwi sali.
In it, he literally throws himself against the door to the hall, trying to prevent the king from going through and signing the partition treaty.
I z punktu widzenia pragmatyki bezsensowny. Historia toczy się dalej.
It's a tragic gesture and from a pragmatic point of view, pointless. The treaty is signed anyway and Poland loses its sovereignty. We take the painting out from the time it was made, in the 19th century, and show it in a completely different context, in this case, 1968.
W wieku XIX i z faktu, którego dotyczy, historycznego, I pokazujemy go w zupełnie innym kontekście, w zupełnie innej sytuacji, a więc w roku 1968. To czas tragiczny dla Europy, szczególnie dla Czechosłowacji.
A tragic time for Europe, particularly Czechoslovakia. It's a time when the Prague Spring, the attempt to democratize the communist system, was brutally pacified by the armies of the Warsaw Pact, or colloquially speaking, mowed down by Russian tanks, but also Polish ones, because all of the countries in the Warsaw Pact took part in this pacification of the Prague Spring.
I w tym momencie, jeżeli świadomość ówczesnych Polaków...
In this moment, while the awareness of contemporary Poles at the time can be rated very poorly, as there is general acceptance of this aggression in society, there is one righteous person found amongst this Sodom in Czechoslovakia and Poland.
Jan Palach, który dokonuje aktu samospalenia.
In Czechoslovakia and Prague, the student Jan Palach sets himself on fire in an act of self-immolation, while in Poland, former Home Army soldier Ryszard Siwiec does the same at a stadium during a National Harvest Festival, in this way dramatically protesting against the aggression against Czechoslovakia.
W ten sposób przeciwko agresji na Czechosłowację. We
enter this historic moment from 1968 with a painting from another era, the Reitan painting by Jan Matejko. So it isn't just about historical facts, but the repetition of a certain gesture of protest, where the date is no longer significant. We place this gesture at various points in Polish history, or in this particular case, not just Polish, but also Czechoslovakian.
Thank you, Dr. Kosowski. We've seen some of how Poland has struggled for freedom in the 20th century. Join us next time here at Poland Daily. I'm Phil Goss.
Warsaw Chopin Airport. This is where your Poland adventure begins, whether you are taking off to some ordinary or some exotic destination. You'll feel like a kid in a candy store. Check in to check out. Warsaw's Chopin Airport. Your gateway to adventure. In the first part of our story of our trip to Warsaw's Chopin Airport, we'll be talking to Adrian Kubicki. He's the spokesperson for LOT Polish Airlines. We'll be talking to Adrian and other guests throughout this series of reports from Warsaw's busiest airport, in fact, the busiest airport in Central Europe. Stay with us for an interesting and entertaining trip around Warsaw's Chopin Airport. What are the main direct destinations for LOT to and from Poland?
First of all, we are the oldest airline to fly from this region to the US. We already fly to some of the US destinations like New York and Chicago for 45 years. Mm-hmm. We were actually one of the first to fly non-stop from Europe to the US, believe it or not. So we have long history.
When was that?
It was back in the 70s.
70s, yeah. Okay.
On the Russian planes, actually Soviet planes, Ilyushins. Mm-hmm. Right now we brought to these connections.
I like to think of them as our Russian brothers.
Russian brothers.
That's how I think of them. Yeah.
This is an interesting part of Polish aviation history, because we were still within the Soviet bloc when we decided to bring American airplanes to LOT's fleet. It was in the 80s.
Right.
We were first airline within the Soviet bloc to place an order for Boeing airplanes.
Right. There's a long relationship between Boeing and LOT Airlines, and you were actually one of the first companies doing the transatlantic flights.
It needs to be said that LOT, despite relatively small size comparing to other airlines, and pretty unfortunate location, because obviously being part of the Soviet bloc really stopped us from growing, and we couldn't grow enough connections back in the Soviet times.
Those darn Russians again.
Right.
Yeah. Doggone.
we still were capable to remain probably the most innovative airline in the sky. We were the first airline within the Soviet bloc, to implement Boeing aircraft, so Western aircraft, to our fleet. In the 90s,
That's
we
interesting.
operated.
How did that happen? Yeah.
In the 80s, we made this decision that LOT needs new airplanes to serve transatlantic flights, and we were actually flying all over the world, to Bangkok, to Singapore, to Los Angeles, to Alaska, believe me or not, to Brazil, to you name it. And we needed really reliable aircraft, which is comfortable enough, which is the most technologically advanced, and we decided to implement 767 to our fleet. It served since then for 25 years. Beautiful airplane.
Yeah, they're
really
great. Yeah.
One of the safest, most...
It's a miracle, this airplane. It is a
really, I know this is pretty old construction, but I still enjoy flying on them whenever I have a chance. There are some left, for instance, in the US they still serve some connections.
Very occasionally, yeah. You get one.
Not anymore at LOT, because in 2012
you've got Dreamliners now.
we got brand new Dreamliners, became first airline in Europe to, again, the innovation.
The Boeing 787 Dreamliner seats between 242 and 335 passengers. The first 787 was unveiled in a rollout ceremony on July 8, 2007, at Boeing's Everett factory in Washington State. Development and production of the 787 has involved a large-scale collaboration with numerous suppliers worldwide. Final assembly takes place at the Boeing Everett factory in Everett, Washington, and at the Boeing South Carolina factory in North Charleston, South Carolina. The 787 made its first appearance at an international air show at the Farnborough Air Show in the United Kingdom on July 18, 2010. The 787 Dreamliner program reportedly cost Boeing $32 billion. The program was expected to be profitable after 1,100 aircraft have been sold. It's a long-haul, wide-body twin-engine jetliner which features lightweight construction. It's about 80% composite by volume. External features include a smooth nose contour, raked wing tips, and noise-reducing serrated edges, or chevrons. You were the first airline to have those,
and in Europe.
Yeah. I hear lots of good things about them. What do you? How are they working for you? Have they helped you increase?
First of all, for airline of our size, is the most cost-efficient airplane in the skies.
Oh, okay.
It burns a lot less fuel than the competitors. Has a great interior, and this is about the passenger's experience. So see. The thing is that if you think of any other airline which is bigger than us, I wouldn't really recall the names of the larger carriers. You know that you have broad network, you know what to expect. With LOT Polish Airlines, sometimes you might associate this airline as sort of Eastern Europe, so maybe not the best quality you can expect.
But yeah,
so we wanted to.
But that would be ridiculous.
We wanted to bring to the table something which is on top of that. So to put the guarantee that whenever you take the transatlantic, any like long-haul flight on LOT, you have the same excellent quality and the best aircraft in the skies. And actually, Dreamliner is that product which we wanted to give to our passengers.
What's the competition? The
Airbus?
Pressure,
well, you have other airplanes, but Dreamliner is actually one of a kind constructor.
Oh, okay.
It's actually made out of composite materials. It has better pressure, better humidity on board, so you can take like 12 hours flight and you'll see that your body actually feels much better, is in much better shape than after any flight, any other flight on any other aircraft.
I don't know about you, but I feel terrible when I fly. Especially, I mean, when
working
you fly,
for an airline, you kind of have to like it.
You fly all the time. No, I mean, I love flying. It's amazing. It's a miracle with being in the air and and not flapping your wings or anything. It's great. And having a drink, and having a conversation.
And you can have all of that at LOT.
Yeah, you can close your eyes. You don't have to watch all the time, in case something happens. No, I love flying. But it's scary, but I love it, Because
if you start... It shouldn't be scary.
Because the odds are much safer flying.
Physics. It's very easy.
Yeah. Actually, the odds are much safer flying than driving a car, for example. Or riding in a bus, even, I think. I don't know about riding a train. What's safer, a plane or a train?
Plane is the safest by far.
It's the safest, isn't it? Yeah. So
well, last year we had one major accident, but if you look back to the 2016, it was the first year in the history of aviation without any accident with fatalities or whatsoever.
In the whole world?
In the whole world.
So it's getting safer all the time. Yeah.
It's getting safer.
Yeah, what about flying saucers? Oh, we can't talk about that. You're not a UFO expert. That's the next program. Yeah, we're doing the UFO airport, where they land, the UFOs land. No.
My knowledge stops at
Your knowledge stops at actual airplanes, right. Not craft from another universe or another galaxy. No, now listen, wait a second. Am I tall enough to get on this flight? I'm a little worried. I'm tall enough, or do I stand on my tiptoes?
No.
Is everybody your size in your country? What's your name?
My name is Peter.
My neck is starting to hurt. I need a ladder. I got to, maybe I need to stand up here. How long have you been working here, Pete?
It's from about 6 days.
You just started, and they were looking for somebody to fix the signs without a ladder, or
no.
You can fix the things over the no.
But when I walk around, the guys who see me in the check-ins, they scared me. They think
they're afraid of you.
Yes,
because they think you're the guy from 007 movies, James Bond movies. Peter, it's very nice to talk to you. Okay, now, next time I'm getting a basketball game together, I'm calling you, okay? Mm-hmm. I'm calling you to play on my team. I'm going to give you the ball, and you're just going to put it in, okay?
Of course, no problem.